Okay, we're live. Okay, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a delayed recording of this week's Security, hosted on the in30.net podcast, netcast, radio, network, whatever you want to call it. We're recording a little late only because I was in San Francisco last week, not at I.O. I was there, but unfortunately I did not get in. And I've just been on the road all week and going from there. So we're recording early Sunday morning, and again, we'll just publish it at the normal time. So today, we don't have any hot topics, new topics, but we have a lot of news. A lot of stuff happened in the last week, and we thought it would be a good thing to report on it. So once again, let's say hi to Tom before we start.
Howdy, everyone.
So the first thing we have is we have an actual bona fide comment. So somebody actually is watching us, and they have a comment, and this comes from the TrueCrypt episode, where we talked about what happened with TrueCrypt. And by the way, do we have any news to report on it?
No, it's been pretty much quiet. There was some rumor about someone releasing some comments through Pastebin, but nothing really substantial to go on. So as of this moment, it's all the same.
So just no news. You can listen to Steve Gibson's episode on TrueCrypt, and you can go to the GRC site and download the last official version, which he claims is fully done. No bugs, no nothing. It's feature complete, I guess they call it. So somebody on the YouTubes, Argo Nova, we like real names, but Argo Nova says, "Excuse me for asking what is perhaps an extremely naive question, but what was the original basis for having so much trust in TrueCrypt to begin with? As you both said, it has pretty much become the gold standard, so much so that even comes pre-installed with many Linux distributions. Yet both admit that the developers are totally unknown, and while you speak of others auditing it, who exactly are these others, and where are their results posted?" Next question. "I don't want to sound like a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy nut, and yet in this modern age with all that is going on, when I come upon something like this, I immediately have to ask myself the obvious question. Could the NSA or some other secretive agency bent on worldwide espionage have put this software out with backdoors built in to be used only at the highest levels of top secret? Or is there some safeguard against that possibility everyone but me is aware of?"
I think
so, Tom, do we want to answer this?
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a fantastic couple of questions. And, they're entirely right. And they're well within their rights and well within the right mind to be tinfoil hatty about this. My grandmother isn't interested in TrueCrypt. She doesn't know what it is. She doesn't really care. But security people want to keep their data encrypted. And those are the kind of people who should probably be worried about security, right? We do a lot of security research. We've got some sensitive data. We want to keep that safe. So being tinfoil hatty about the whole thing is the right state of mind to be in. Now, the developers are anonymous. The one thing they did give us is the source code. If the TrueCrypt developers put out a binary file, just put out a download, and they said, "Hey, here's the download. We're not going to give any source code, but hey, just go ahead, run this on your machine. It's fine. It encrypts everything." We wouldn't trust them at all. When TrueCrypt launched, over several years, source code has been published. People have been looking at it. They've been looking for backdoors specifically, looking for pieces of malware, looking for any compromise, any kind of chink in the armor to destroy TrueCrypt or to break the encryption. And the fact of the matter is, the code is really good. It's really great, actually. Hard to work with, hard to compile, but as far as security goes, there weren't any huge glaring concerns. And we're now getting the results of that with the TrueCrypt audit, which, to answer the other question, you can find at istruecryptauditedyet.com. That website has got a bunch of links and a bunch of information on the TrueCrypt audit and where they're at right now. They have confirmed the bootloader for Windows for the full disk encryption.
I think you're wrong, Tom.
Backdoors.
Tom, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say, it's not, you were almost right. Is TrueCrypt audited yet.com?
Yes. Yeah. Sorry about that.
That's the website. I think you said something else.
Okay.
But continue. Basically, part one is done.
Yes.
And now which was just the generic cursory looking at the code. Now it's everything else, the hard part.
Right. The first part was the Windows bootloader for full disk encryption. The next part is actually looking at the core functionality of TrueCrypt and trying to see if it's broken. And these are, instead of cursory security people, instead of just the open source community at large, these are actual security researchers. These are people that get paid to audit code on a daily basis. If they say it's going to be secure, I would trust them. So, yeah, the developers are completely unknown, but we have their work. We know exactly what the code does. And when you compile the source code of TrueCrypt, when you compare the signatures of the source code and the signatures of the binary, after you compile them, they work. They check out. You know that that source code has made that installable application. So we can assume, unless we find a backdoor later, we can assume it's going to be safe. Will they find a backdoor? I'm not thinking so. Will they find problems in the security? Could be. I don't think it's very likely, but it could be. And could this have been made by a government agency of some sort? Yeah, it could have. But that's why we have the source code. That's why we need to audit it. That's why we need to look at it. For me, I still put faith in TrueCrypt. I still put faith in the project and in the code. But if the audit turns up something different, you better bet I'm going to be running to another encryption solution.
Well, you also have to remember a few things. So over the 10 years that they were in development or developing TrueCrypt, you could see from, one, the documentation. It is so well documented that if there's really a backdoor, somebody would have figured it out. They're telling you what they're doing. And one of the things I find really interesting is when you go to choose an encryption key and you put the password in, TrueCrypt actually doesn't remember that encryption key. They just try all the encryptions. They take that one key and they hash everything until they find a match. So something like that, so it's basically hardening, it's slowing down the password, not generation, but the attempts, because if you guess the wrong key, it has to go through all the encryption schemes until it finds the right one. If it's wrong, it tells you the wrong one. So something like that shows, at least in my mind, that this is something that's done really well. That's one. And then two, we hear all these news stories, and the one I'm thinking of comes from 5 or 6 years ago, where some drug dealer in Brazil, the Brazilians had to fly the hard drive to the U.S. to see if they can decrypt it after 5 years of trying, and they haven't. And we've heard that the government agencies really don't like TrueCrypt, only because they're not able to decrypt it. So if it was a government agency, you hear these news stories that they are unable to do anything with it.
Right, and I mean, if you're going to be tinfoil hatty about the whole thing, what if that was just a ploy? What if it was a fake news story or even a real news story? What if it was a setup by the government to convince us that TrueCrypt is really safe when there's actually a backdoor in it? I don't really have an answer for that. That could be true. I think it's a very small possibility. But could that happen? I don't think it's outside of the possibilities of reality. That said, I consider TrueCrypt safe for now.
I mean, we know, well, the last good edition, not obviously the current edition.
Yeah,
but,
not 7.2. I would trust 7.1.
I mean, I'm just going back to the question. We don't know the developers. That is true, but and when there was a legitimate question, not what's going on, they answered, they explained. They used TrueCrypt as the back end. They didn't say, "Oh, our names we're just TrueCrypt developers." And I mean, so we have. You're right. You should be concerned, but we've had 10 years of people hammering on this, and in 10 years they found nothing. And this audit so far, the first phase says other than some poor formatting of some code, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, the safeguard that we have in trusting TrueCrypt is The source code is open. We know what it's doing, and we've been hammering on it for a long time, and it seems secure. That said, with any security software, even if the source code's open, if it's just come out, don't install it. I mean, there hasn't been enough time for people to hammer on it and try to hack it. That's why with Google's end-to-end encryption solution for their email, people aren't installing it and they're not being made available. The program's not being made available to install because it hasn't been bashed on enough. We haven't attacked it enough to verify that it's secure. TrueCrypt has had that.
And I would say that now we know that Ed Snowden used TrueCrypt to communicate with and PGP to communicate. So he worked for the NSA. You have to say that he chose the right solution for the right job, and so far the NSA can't stop him from revealing things. So he's doing something right, or TrueCrypt is doing something right. We'll go from there.
I think that pretty well answers the question. But if you have any other questions or comments, leave them on YouTube, send them to us, tweet us, get on Google+, start yelling at us. You know the drill.
Look, we want more follow-up. I mean, people's subscribing to the show. You should subscribe. We will eventually have a separate feed for the show, but for right now, in30.net is the best way to get a hold of us. So the second topic we have is the warrantless phone searches. So last week, I think on Thursday, the Supreme Court rendered two pretty big decisions. One was with Aereo, which is another show, but the second one was warrantless phone searches. The government cannot, or law enforcement cannot just search your phone without a warrant. They used to say it, but the Supreme Court basically said that this is the same as entering your house, and you just can't do it. You need a warrant.
Right. This is huge. This is massive. There have been stories over the past, couple years about law enforcement officers when, pulling someone over, when arresting someone, going through their phone and using what they find on their phone as evidence. That is not allowed. Even if the person wasn't being arrested, wasn't being detained, wasn't being charged with anything, the police officer would search their phone. It wasn't like every cop everywhere was doing this. I don't want to give that impression, but it did happen. The Supreme Court has now said, hey, look, that's like searching a car, it's like searching a home. You can't do it without a piece of paper from the courts saying you have jurisdiction over that device. You cannot search a phone without a warrant. That is fantastic. Probably it definitely makes me happy. It's too long coming, right? It took way too long for this to happen, but we might finally be getting to the point where the judges, where the justices, where the people that make the laws and enforce the laws are getting to a level of technical understanding where we might have laws that start to make sense for the digital age. And this has been, it's taken way too long, right? But let's not knock it down. This is a good thing. This is a very good thing.
Just remember, this is not ironclad that they absolutely cannot search your phone. It's saying they need a warrant, and I'm sure under national security or the court did carve out exceptions for exigencies such as major security threats. So it probably falls under the probable cause law. If they have probable cause, they can search, but they just can't pull you over saying, oh, you were speeding, oh, let me see your phone.
Right. So we'll see how it plays out in the long run. But I've got a good gut feeling about this.
And this still, I mean, I've always held on to the fact that I put a PIN code specifically for that reason.
Yeah.
I mean, you should always have a PIN code. You should always have all the security you can. But this was one thing that I held to, that to tell the average person, put a PIN code on for nothing except you getting pulled over and the law enforcement wants to search your phone. You have the right not to give it to them. You will get
Yeah.
arrested and you will be brought in, but you at the end of the day do not have you have the right to remain silent, and that is keeping with I'm being silent. Take me in and get a formal order to search my phone.
Yeah. Now, what I
So
do every time I'm pulled over, now I have an Android phone. I have elected to encrypt my phone. That means when I turn it on, I've got to put in my password for the thing to even boot. Otherwise, it doesn't boot at all. It doesn't even turn on. It doesn't fully turn on. So when I'm getting pulled over, and this has happened a couple times, not to incriminate myself, while being pulled over, I'll grab my phone and I'll shut it off, and then I'll put it down. And that way, on the off chance that the cop would grab my phone or arrest me for some reason or whatever, you don't know what'll happen. They can't get any data, right? It's full disk encryption. They can't unlock it. It's a done deal. Um, Not that I have anything incriminating on my phone, but it's security. I don't want them going through my phone. I don't trust them to go through my phone. They have no right to go through my phone. And now the court system agrees with us.
let me ask you this. So when you turn on your phone from an encrypted state, can you set it to have a second password? So you have just a simple generic PIN lock or 1 2 3 4 to get into the phone, but can you set it up to have a separate code to disable it or to allow it to boot up? And what I'm getting at is you can say, well, I don't boot up my phone all that often. Plausible deniability. Hey, I forgot that password.
Right. I wish. I really wish. Because I would love to have the pattern lock for my phone, but have a really complex password for my encryption. Instead, we've got this middle ground where you can have full disk encryption and have a really complex password, but now every time you unlock your phone, you need to put in that really complex password. So it's really, really annoying.
Well, just so you wait for Android L. One of the things that they
Yeah.
announced last week is we're using Bluetooth LE. If you're near either your new Google Watch and hopefully my Google Glass or some sort of other device that they can authenticate as you won't have to put it in. And now you can really say plausible deniability. I don't understand, officer. I don't boot up my phone all that often. I have this somewhere, but I don't know where it is.
Yeah.
So we go from there. So good. This is a good thing. Again, you shouldn't be doing anything wrong, but now they can't just look at your phone. Like, don't. This is not an excuse to get out of a distracted driving ticket. Officer, you can't prove that I was doing it. No, don't be distracted while driving.
Right.
But
Right. The police officer can, if he sees you doing one of these, he can pull you over. He's not going to search your phone. He doesn't have that right. But he can say, look, dude, I saw you texting. Here's your ticket. Fight it in court. That's entirely possible. So be safe out there.
So, again, another good thing. The third thing on our list is police malware. So, Tom, this is a story you brought up to me,
Yes.
from Wired, basically saying that we found out the tools that the government is using to steal. I don't know what hijack your phone means, but you're going to tell us.
Yeah. So there is, and this is not related to any one particular device. It's okay. Law enforcement wanted a way to be able to do essentially surveillance on a target, on a person or group of people using their phones. They needed an application to do this. So a company created an application that is essentially spyware for your phone, for Android, for iPhone, for BlackBerry. It works everywhere. This is insane. I'm looking through the permissions list right now. I'm looking through they did an APK teardown of this thing. This is pretty huge. It allows you to, of course, turn on all the cameras, look at what you're looking at, turn on the microphone selectively, attach to Wi-Fi networks so they can siphon out the data. If they catch anything doing a scan or packet analysis, it will shut itself down or uninstall itself. Really crazy malware. It can't be remotely installed right now, so it's not like an exploit. Um, it looks like people are either tricked into clicking a link and installing an application, or if they have, it says if law enforcement has physical access to the device, they can install this malware. This is pretty terrifying. Um, it's being used all over the world, in tons of countries. The company has come out and said, hey, look, we only give it to places with the democratic police force, but there's some evidence, and we're not sure if it's, we don't know if this is the case, but it sure looks like they're using this in totalitarian governments as well, this exact application. It goes as far as routing data through a network of anonymous proxy servers to get back to the command and control server where law enforcement can grab all of your data. This is pretty big.
I mean, stories like this have come out where law enforcement calls up Apple and says, "Hey, Apple, can you get us this information?" They confiscate the phone, and Apple said, "We're on a 6-month delay on doing this." Or every once in a while you see in some spy magazine or on the internet, this is the tool the government uses, and it goes on a low levels permission list like you're describing, where it basically plugs in, and the only way to stop that is to encrypt your phone. So we know about this, but we didn't know exactly how far it went, and this is saying here this is not good.
This is really, from a standpoint of looking at a spyware analysis, looking at kind of its functionality, its feature set. This is a really well-built tool. This is really good. It's not Stuxnet level, right? That's some next-gen level stuff. But this is pretty good. It can grab the local files, chat calls from Facebook, Viber, WhatsApp, Skype, Line, QQ, and probably others. It can get locally stored mail files belonging to a person's email account. It tries to encrypt, it tries to obfuscate and compress the data it's collecting from your phone so it's not caught on the way out. And, of course, you can turn on a GPS and you can track someone's physical location. That's easy. It's got a ton of documentation that's showing, you need to have in place anonymizers to get the data out. You need to have a collector, a network controller, a master node, and they go through how to set all of this up. It's a big piece of network infrastructure. It's not something that your local sheriff's office that resides over a town of 90 people is going to install. But if you live in a major city, if you live anywhere that has a sizable police force, you can guarantee they're using this. Now, is this being used without warrants? Hopefully not now, because that's entirely against the law. Could it be? Yeah. It definitely could be. We have to watch out. We have to make sure that when evidence is presented in court, we try to follow the paper trail of how it was gathered. Because if you don't know anything about the American court system, one of the ways it works is if evidence was gathered illegally, if law enforcement has done the wrong things, or even if they haven't filled out the paperwork properly when presenting evidence, that evidence is thrown out of court. It is no longer admissible, and it's struck from the record. That can no longer be used to incriminate you. It's really cool, but we need to really, really make sure that this isn't being used without a warrant. With a warrant, yeah, it's legal, and it probably should be. The thing you can do to protect yourself is don't install unknown applications, and don't leave the phone out of your sight, especially if you think you're going to be targeted. And also, don't plug your phone into your computer to charge it or back it up. One of the things they're saying on here is they can infect a computer with this malware, and that malware will install it on your phone once you plug it in. So you can infect yourself. Really, really well-built software. Terrifying, but really well-built.
It's one of the. I mean, this story is going on now this week. If you turn on CNN, all I heard all week in the hotel room was a father left his 22-month old son in the car while he went to work, and the son eventually died. And he initially said, "Oh, it was an accident," which, to be honest, terrifies me because I'm in that same position. I go and I'm always thinking, where's the baby? Where's the baby? Where's the baby? And it's conceivable where you are in a rush and you forget. But they eventually found out that he went back out at lunchtime and saw the baby crying there and didn't do anything. But the point I'm getting at is one of his Google searches was how long does it take to kill a dog in heat or something like that. And now they're going after him for premeditated murder. And one of the questions is, did they have the right to search his Google history, or is that Google history something worthwhile to say, okay, he could have searched that. What time was it searched? Any of this? And hopefully, if that's the case, and they had legal measures to find this, rather than illegally getting this information.
Yeah, so it's interesting. We'll have to see what comes of this. We'll give the link in the show notes. It's quite a long read, but I highly, highly suggest you go through this if you're at all interested in sort of how modern spyware is built in the mobile age. This is the template. This is how you do it. If you're going to build a system that does this, this is the thing you use.
And the other thing you always have to remember is, with all of this, is your ISP has everything. It doesn't matter if you surf in incognito mode. It doesn't matter if you hide your tracks. Your ISP, unless you use Tor, and you're going to tell me I'm right or wrong, unless you use Tor, your ISP has a list of everything that leaves your connection.
Right. Unless you use Tor, all they have to do, or another VPN.
Because, and all they have to do is just subpoena that, and we all know that their Comcast, Verizon, all of them are not on your side.
No.
So they'll be the first to sell you out. So
no, your ISP will bend over backwards to help law enforcement to satisfy any requirements. They are not there to fight for you. They don't care about you being a paying customer. They've got plenty of them. What they don't want is they don't want to get on the bad side of the feds. So if you care about hiding traffic from your ISP, use Tor, use a VPN system. You can even set up in most routers a whole house VPN where all of your traffic is routed out to a VPN service. Yeah, it slows things down. Yeah, it's not the most efficient thing that you can do on your connection. But if you're concerned about your ISP having your data, it's really the only choice you have. Same thing with your cell company.
And again, you have to weigh convenience with the security and privacy that you want, and you can go from there. We only have 2 minutes left, but our last story, and I don't know how far we'll get into it, but the NSA backdoor has been defunded by Congress, or at least voted on to be defunded. And I think that's a pretty huge win.
Yes, very much so. It's not the best thing that could happen, but this is big. This is great. The NSA backdoor program is basically the NSA can go up to companies and say, hey, could you build in a backdoor or weaken your security products or spy on these people for us so we can prosecute them, so we can go after them. That part of the NSA, the money that comes from the Defense Appropriations Bill, that's been written in as defunded. You cannot use it for that. So if the majority of their money comes from that piece of the bill, yeah, it's gone. They no longer have the money to run that program. It doesn't mean they're not allowed to. It just means there is no money earmarked to go to that program. The money is not allowed to flow there. So hopefully it just dies a natural death of, hey, we don't have any money, so we're shutting it down. But that's good. That's a good thing. It's a good step in the right direction. Now, where the money will come from next, if the money will keep flowing into this program from another bill, we won't know.
See, security is unfortunately one of those things that both sides are sort of on the same side. You have all the extremists saying security. We need to know all of this. We want to stop the terrorists. We want to stop this. We need to have this information. It's only a select few that realize, hey, wait a second, this is going too far. Because remember, everyone wants to be safe. Everyone thinks the TSA is doing a great job, except for the select few that say, wait a second, no, they're not. They're not doing anything. And we have this everywhere you go. You want to know that the bad guys will be caught, but until it infringes on your rights, it's good. Once it bothers you, then it has to go there. And you have to remember, the congressman, I don't know if it bothers them yet, or enough to at least do something about it. So we're going to keep a look on this, but our time's up for today. Whatever we have, we'll bring to you next week as more follow-up.
We'll see you next time.
Bye.